Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Maybe you've had a long day, or maybe you're just the sort of person who likes to fall asleep thinking about stars and gravity instead of sheep. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. You don't need to do anything but rest. Let your thoughts soften, your breathing slow, and your mind uncoil like a ribbon floating in the dark. Tonight, we're going to travel back to a moment that lies at the very edge of what science can see. The beginning of the universe, or at least the earliest thing we can point to and call a beginning. It's a story not just of matter and light and time, but of the limits of what it means to know something. Of what it means for a moment to even exist. Don't worry, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll go slowly, gently, thoughtfully. And just before we begin, if you find comfort in these quiet journeys through time and space, if they help you drift off or simply soothe your mind after a long day, consider gently tapping the like button. It helps others find their way here, too. One sleepy soul at a time. Now, let's begin. Not with a bang just yet, but with a question. One that sits quietly beneath almost every other. A question that hides in the corners of astronomy, physics, and cosmology. Where did everything come from? It's the kind of question that feels too big to hold. Bigger than stars or galaxies, bigger than thought itself. And for a long time, science didn't try to answer it. After all, how do you measure the beginning of time when time is the very thing that's beginning? How do you explain the birth of space when your only tools for explanation rely on space already being there? But that silence didn't last forever. In the early 20th century, something shifted. Not because someone found the answer, but because new clues began to appear. Observations, data, dots on graphs, strange fingerprints in the night sky. And slowly, a pattern emerged. A quiet but unmistakable suggestion that the universe itself is not static. It's expanding. The space between galaxies is growing. Imagine the universe as a vast fabric, stretching in all directions at once. Not because galaxies are flying away from each other like debris from an explosion, but because space itself is stretching everywhere. All at once. The idea of a changing universe was at first uncomfortable. For centuries, people had assumed the cosmos was eternal and unchanging. Even Einstein, when first faced with the implications of his own equations, introduced a cosmological constant to cancel out the possibility of expansion. Not because the math required it, but because the idea of a dynamic universe seemed too strange, too unstable. He would later call that adjustment his greatest mistake. But as more observations came in, the evidence became harder to ignore. In the 1920s, the astronomer Edwin Hubble made a discovery that transformed our understanding of the cosmos forever. When he studied the light coming from distant galaxies, he noticed something unexpected. Their light was stretched, reddened, as if being pulled away. And the farther away the galaxy was, the more stretched its light appeared to be. It wasn't just that some galaxies were receding. All of them were. This pattern could only mean one thing. The universe was expanding. Not with galaxies flying through empty space, but with space itself growing, slowly carrying the galaxies apart like raisins in a rising loaf of bread. It was a radical idea, but the data supported it. And if the universe is expanding today, then that means in the past it must have been smaller, denser, hotter, wound tighter and tighter into some earlier state. The further back you go, the more extreme things become. Eventually, this reasoning led scientists to a remarkable conclusion. If everything is spreading apart now, and if that pattern continues as you rewind the clock, then the universe must have once been compacted into an incredibly hot, incredibly dense state. A state where all the matter, energy, space, and even time itself may have been compressed together. Not into a single point exactly, but into a state so extreme that our current physics begins to break down. This became the foundation for what we now call the Big Bang Theory. A somewhat misleading name since it wasn't really a bang at all. There was no explosion in space because space itself was what was beginning. There was no sound, no light in the way we normally imagine it. Just an unfolding of everything, everywhere, all at once. A moment when the universe didn't expand into space but created space as it expanded. It's important to pause here because this is where science meets its current horizon. The Big Bang Theory doesn't actually describe the very beginning. It describes everything that happened after the universe began expanding. It gives us a framework to understand how the cosmos evolved from that early fireball to the cool, structured universe we see today. But the actual moment of beginning, the exact nature of time, space, and cause before that expansion remains cloaked in mystery. We don't yet know what, if anything, came before. We might never know. Think of this first chapter as our departure from the shores of the known. We are standing at the edge of a vast ocean of time, looking back at the first ripples. Our math may fail us at the absolute origin, but it begins to sing just a fraction of a second later. This is the threshold of the Planck Epoch, the first tiny sliver of time after the universe began expanding. Just 100 million trillion trillionths of a second after the beginning. As you breathe in and out, consider that the entire history of the cosmos, with all its stars and stories, is built upon this single, mysterious foundation. A beginning that was not an end, but an opening. A question that led to a universe. We will look more closely at what we can actually say about these physical events as we continue our journey. But for now, let the scale of it all anchor you. You are a part of this expanding fabric. A momentary ripple in a sea of ancient change. Sleep now, and let the quiet expansion of space carry your thoughts into the deep, dark silence where everything began. The story has only just started. As your mind rests on the edge of that vast, primordial silence we just spoke of, imagine yourself for a moment in the quiet, cold night of the early 1920s. A time before the glow of cities swallowed the stars. A time when the universe was thought to be a static, eternal stage where nothing ever truly changed on a grand scale. Even the most brilliant minds of that era believed the cosmos was a fixed container, a steady and unchanging house for all that exists. But beneath that perceived stillness, a revolution was waiting in the dark. In a quiet observatory on Mount Wilson, an astronomer named Edwin Hubble began to look deeper into the night than anyone had before. Using the massive 100-inch Hooker telescope, he peered at distant smudges of light that many believed were merely clouds of gas within our own galaxy. But as he looked closer, he realized they were something far more profound. They were other, island universes. Entire galaxies, millions of light-years away, each holding billions of stars of their own. This discovery alone was enough to shift our place in the cosmos, but Hubble didn't stop there. He began to study the light itself, the very messenger of the stars. He noticed that the light from these distant galaxies was shifted toward the red end of the spectrum. In physics, we call this a redshift. Just as the sound of a receding siren drops in pitch as it moves away from you, the light of a receding galaxy stretches into longer, redder wavelengths. Hubble found a pattern that shattered the idea of a static universe forever. Not only were almost all galaxies moving away from us, but the farther away a galaxy was, the faster it appeared to be receding. It was a revelation that changed everything we thought we knew about space and time. The universe was not a fixed stage. It was, and is, a dynamic, growing entity. Take a deep breath now and try to visualize what this truly means. It's not that galaxies are flying through a pre-existing empty void like shrapnel from an explosion. Instead, it is the very fabric of space itself that is stretching. Everywhere. All at once. In every direction. Imagine a loaf of raisin bread dough as it begins to rise in the warmth of an oven. As the dough expands, the distance between every single raisin grows. A raisin on one side of the loaf sees every other raisin moving away. Not because the raisins are swimming through the dough, but because the dough between them is increasing. This is our universe. Space is the dough, and the galaxies are the raisins, carried along by a silent, invisible stretching that has been happening for billions of years. This discovery was so radical that even Albert Einstein initially struggled to accept it. When his own equations of general relativity suggested a dynamic universe, he added a cosmological constant to force the math into a static state, an act he would later regret as his greatest mistake once Hubble's evidence became undeniable. As you lie there in the stillness of your room, let the scale of this expansion settle over you. Somewhere, far beyond the horizon of what we can see, the distance between the great clusters of galaxies is growing even as we speak. The universe is breathing. It is unfolding. And yet, in the midst of this grand cosmic motion, you are safe and still. Your world, your body, the atoms that make you, they are held together by forces stronger than this gentle stretching. You are an observer, anchored in the heart of a beautiful, growing mystery. If the universe is expanding today, it means that yesterday it was slightly smaller. 1,000,000 years ago, smaller still. 1,000,000,000 years ago, much tighter. Hubble's discovery provides us with the ultimate rewind button for the history of everything. It leads us back, inevitably, to a time when all the space we see today was compressed into a volume smaller than an atom. But before we reach that ultimate point of origin, we must appreciate the elegance of the stretch itself. The redshifted light Hubble saw is a cosmic fingerprint, a reminder that the universe has a history. It has a beginning, and it has a story that is still being written in the increasing distance between the stars. Let your breathing synchronize with this ancient, slow expansion. In and out. Just as space grows with a quiet, persistent grace, let your mind expand and then soften. There is no rush. The galaxies have been drifting for billions of years, and they will continue to do so long after tonight. You are simply a part of the flow. A conscious spark watching the fabric of existence grow. As we move forward in our journey, we will see how this stretching space eventually cooled, allowing the first particles to form, but for now, just hold the image of that vast, stretching dark. A universe that refused to stay small. A universe that chose to become a home for light and life. The stretch is silent. The stretch is patient. And as you drift closer to sleep, let the thought of this infinite, growing room give you peace. There is plenty of space for your dreams. There is plenty of time for the stars. The cosmic symphony is playing a slow, deep note, and you are exactly where you need to be to hear it. As we continue to rewind the cosmic film in our minds, let the images of sprawling galaxies and distant stars begin to draw closer together. Imagine the vast distances we spoke of earlier shrinking, the fabric of space itself tightening and warming as everything returns to its source. We are moving toward a moment that is often called the Big Bang. But as you settle deeper into your rest, I want you to release the word bang from your thoughts. Let go of any image of a sudden, violent explosion occurring within a dark, empty room. The Big Bang was not an explosion in space. It was the unfolding of space itself. Imagine for a moment that there is no outside. There was no pre-existing darkness waiting to be filled with light. There was no silent void waiting for a sound. Instead, there was only a state of infinite potential, a moment where space, time, and energy were all one single, compressed reality. When the expansion began, it didn't happen in one spot. It happened everywhere, all at once. Every point in the universe was the center of this beginning. This realization is one of the most peaceful thoughts in cosmology. You are not living in the aftermath of a distant explosion that happened somewhere else. You are standing exactly where it began, because every inch of the universe today was once part of that tiny, brilliant start. The Big Bang happened right where you are lying now, just as much as it happened in the farthest reaches of the most distant galaxy. In those first few moments, the universe was a place of extreme simplicity. It was far too hot for atoms to exist, far too dense for light to travel. It was a roiling, glowing sea of pure energy, governed by laws of physics that were still being written. There was no chaos, though it might seem so from a distance. It was a highly ordered, incredibly uniform state. An unfolding of mathematical perfection. Think of a tightly wound spring, holding all the energy of a billion stars. As it begins to release, it doesn't snap. It expands with a terrifying yet beautiful grace. This was the hot Big Bang. A period where the universe didn't just grow, it evolved. It changed from a state of total unity into a state of differentiation. We often wonder what came before. But as the great physicist Stephen Hawking once suggested, asking what happened before the Big Bang might be like asking what is north of the North Pole. If time itself began with this expansion, then the word before loses its meaning. It is a horizon beyond which our language cannot travel. And there is a certain comfort in that mystery. A realization that some things are so fundamental that they precede the very concept of when. As the universe unfolded, it began to cool. And in that cooling, the first structures began to emerge. Not stars or planets yet, but the very first particles. Quarks and electrons, shimmering in the heat, beginning their long dance toward becoming the matter that makes up your world. Everything you see around you, the pillow beneath your head, the air you are breathing, the very atoms in your heart, all of it was present in that early, glowing plasma. You are a direct descendant of that first unfolding. Let your breathing mimic that cosmic rhythm. A slow, steady expansion. A release of tension. Just as the universe created room for itself, creating space where there was none, allow yourself to create space within your mind. You do not need to fill this space with worries or plans. Just let it be vast. Just let it be still. The Big Bang is not a distant historical event that ended long ago. It is a process that is still happening. Every time a new star forms, every time a galaxy drifts a little further away, the unfolding continues. We are still living in the echoes of that first silent opening. We are the universe looking back at its own beginning, trying to understand the warmth from which we came. In the chapters to follow, we will look at the specific epochs, the tiny slivers of time where the forces of nature separated and the first light broke through. But for now, just hold on to this sense of unity. You come from a moment of total togetherness. A moment where everything that ever was, and everything that ever will be, touched. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine that early universe not as a violent fire, but as a warm, golden fog. A fog that is slowly clearing, revealing a world of infinite possibility. The silence of that beginning is here with you now. It is the silence of a new day. It is the silence of a deep, restorative rest. The unfolding is patient. The universe is not in a hurry, and neither are you. You have all the time in the cosmos to simply be. Floating in the quiet realization that you are made of the very first light, and the very first heat. Safe, still, and part of an eternal beginning. As your mind rests within that first, silent opening of the universe, I want to invite you deeper still, into a sliver of time so small it defies the human imagination. We are moving past seconds, past milliseconds, even past the vibrations of atoms, to a threshold known as the Planck Epoch. This is the shortest unit of time that can possibly exist, according to our current understanding of reality. It is a place where the laws of physics as we know them fall silent, and mathematics turns into something more like a quiet, ancient poem. As your breathing slows, let yourself settle into the peace of this absolute, primordial potential. The Planck Epoch lasted from the very beginning until about 10 to the power of -43 seconds. That is a decimal point followed by 42 zeros and then a 1. It is a moment so brief that if you were to multiply it by the number of atoms in the entire observable universe, you would still not reach the length of a single second. And yet, in this tiny, infinitesimal flicker of existence, the entire blueprint of our universe was being drawn. At this stage, the universe was incredibly hot and unimaginably dense. The temperature was so high that even the four fundamental forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces, were not separate as they are today. They were unified into one single, magnificent superforce. Imagine a grand symphony where every instrument is playing the exact same note at the exact same time, creating a sound so pure and powerful that it contains all possible music within it. This was the state of the universe. Total unity. perfect symmetry. In this era, space and time were not the smooth, predictable fabric we experience today. Because the universe was so small and so energetic, the rules of general relativity and quantum mechanics were intertwined in a way we don't yet fully understand. Scientists suspect that spacetime itself was a kind of cosmic foam. A roiling, bubbling sea of potential where dimensions might have been curling and uncurling like a sleeping cat. There were no stars to see, no light to travel, because the very stage upon which light moves was still being built. As you lie there in the stillness of your room, try to release the need for things to be separate or defined. In the Planck Epoch, there was no here and there. There was only now. A singular, concentrated moment of being. Just as you are simplifying your thoughts for sleep, the universe at this moment was at its most simple. It was a state of pure information, pure energy, and pure grace. Our current science reaches a wall at this epoch. We call it the Planck wall. Beyond it, our equations break down. Our math begins to return infinities, and our logic falters. It is the ultimate frontier of human knowledge. But there is something deeply restorative about reaching a limit. It reminds us that at the heart of the cosmos, there is a mystery that doesn't need to be solved to be felt. You don't need to understand the quantum gravity of the Planck Epoch to be a part of its legacy. Every atom in your body, every thought in your mind, and every dream you will have tonight can be traced back to the energy contained in that first, tiny sliver of time. You are the Planck Epoch grown large. You are that initial unity, expanded through billions of years of history. Let your mind drift into that unified state, where there are no boundaries between you and the quiet air of the room. Where the weight of your body feels as natural as the curve of spacetime itself. You are safe within the laws of the universe, even the ones we haven't discovered yet. The forces that govern the stars are the same forces that keep your heart beating in its slow, rhythmic lullaby. During this epoch, the universe was smaller than a single subatomic particle. It is a thought that humbles the ego and settles the soul. Everything we have ever known, every mountain, every ocean, every person who has ever lived, was once held together in a space so small it could not be seen. This closeness, this fundamental togetherness, is the true nature of the cosmos. We are only separate in appearance. At our core, we are still that single, unified spark. As the Planck Epoch came to an end, the first break in symmetry occurred. Gravity, the most patient of all forces, began to pull away from the others, starting its own long journey of shaping the galaxies and pulling the tides. But for now, we stay in the memory of the union. Before the split. Before the complexity. Feel the warmth of that early, concentrated light behind your eyes. Not a light that blinds, but a light that glows with the promise of everything to come. The universe was a seed, and it was sleeping. Just as you are preparing to sleep now. Within that seed was the potential for every sunrise, every forest, and every quiet moment of peace. Let go of the details of the day. They are far away now, floating in the vastness of cosmic time. Here, at the edge of physics, there is only the pulse of existence. A slow, deep, and ancient rhythm. In and out. The universe began in a state of perfect order, and in your rest, you are returning to a reflection of that order. The noise of life is fading, replaced by the silent math of the stars. You are resting on the foundation of reality itself. Unmoving, undisturbed, and infinitely precious. Sleep now, knowing that the mystery at the beginning of time is the same mystery that watches over you in the dark. The story is unfolding, and you are a vital part of its quietest, most beautiful chapter. In the perfect unity of the Planck Epoch, we rested in a moment where everything was a single, harmonious breath. Every law of nature, every spark of energy, and every potential for the future was folded into one. But as the universe began to expand, that sacred simplicity started to give way to something more complex, more varied, and more beautiful. Just as the mind begins to fragment into different layers of consciousness as it drifts toward sleep, the universe began to find its own distinct identity. This is the era of the Great Parting. A moment scientists call symmetry breaking. Imagine a perfectly balanced needle standing on its tip. It is a state of absolute symmetry, pointing in every direction and no direction at all. But such a state is unstable. Eventually, the needle must fall. And when it falls, it chooses a direction. The symmetry is broken, but in that breaking, something real is defined. This is exactly what happened as the early universe cooled. The cooling was the catalyst for the superforce to fracture. The first to depart was gravity. The oldest and most patient of all forces, gravity stepped away from the unity and began its long, eternal work. It was no longer bound to the others. It became the invisible hand that would one day pull clouds of gas into stars, and stars into galaxies. It became the anchor that keeps your body resting heavily and safely on your bed tonight. As you feel the weight of your limbs sinking into the mattress, recognize that you are feeling the legacy of this first cosmic divorce. Gravity is the memory of that ancient parting, a silent force that reaches across the vastness of space to hold things together. It is the force that allows for a here and a there, a top and a bottom. Without this break in symmetry, the universe would have remained a featureless, singular point. There would be no structure, no planets, and no one to dream of them. As the expansion continued and the temperature dropped further, the remaining forces, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and electromagnetism, also began to seek their own paths. They were like siblings who had shared a single room, now stepping out to build their own houses. The strong nuclear force became the glue of the subatomic world, the power that would eventually hold the hearts of atoms together with unbreakable strength. The weak nuclear force took charge of transformation, allowing particles to change and decay, a necessary step for the sun to eventually shine. And electromagnetism became the force of light and chemistry, the reason why atoms can bond and why your nervous system can send signals of peace to your brain. In physics, we think of this as a phase transition. Much like water vapor cooling down to become liquid water, or water freezing into ice. The substance remains the same, but its behavior changes fundamentally. The universe was freezing into the laws of physics we recognize today. There is a profound comfort in knowing that the laws governing your existence were forged in this cooling. The very atoms that make up your pillow are held together by the strong force that separated billions of years ago. The light that filters through your window, even in the darkest night, is the work of electromagnetism. You are not an accidental byproduct of the cosmos. You are a complex arrangement of these fundamental choices made by the universe in its earliest moments. As you breathe in, imagine the unity that once was. As you breathe out, feel the strength of the forces that now sustain you. The breaking of symmetry wasn't a loss of perfection. It was the birth of possibility. Perfection is often static, unchanging, and silent. But a broken symmetry is dynamic. It allows for movement, for chemistry, and eventually, for life. The universe had to become imperfect so that it could become interesting. It had to separate so that it could eventually reconnect through us. During this transition, the universe also underwent a brief but staggering growth spurt, which we will explore in our next chapter. But for now, just focus on the balance. The way gravity pulls you down, while the electromagnetic forces in your bed push back up, creating a perfect cradle of support. You are suspended in a web of cosmic forces, each one playing its part in the silent symphony of your rest. Let your thoughts follow the path of gravity, downward, deeper, into the quiet layers of sleep. You don't need to hold yourself together anymore. The strong force is doing that for you. You don't need to light the way. Electromagnetism is waiting in the potential of the stars. Everything is governed by a deep, ancient order that was settled long before you were born. The forces are at peace. The symmetry has been broken so that you could have a place to rest. The world is structured, the laws are firm, and you are held in the gentle, powerful grip of a universe that knows exactly what it is doing. Sleep now, as the forces of the cosmos watch over you in their quiet, specialized ways. The separation is over, the foundation is laid, and the journey continues. After the first cosmic crossroads where the fundamental forces parted ways, we now arrive at the most staggering fraction of a second in the history of everything. As you settle deeper into your rest, I want you to imagine a moment of growth so rapid and so vast that it defies every intuition we have about the physical world. This is the era of cosmic inflation. A sudden, breathtaking expansion where the universe didn't just grow, it surged. In a period of time so short it cannot be measured by any clock, the cosmos expanded by a factor of at least 10 to the power of 26. To visualize this, imagine something the size of a grain of sand suddenly becoming larger than the entire Milky Way galaxy in the blink of an eye. This was not a matter of things moving through space at high speeds. This was space itself stretching at a rate far exceeding the speed of light. While nothing can travel through space faster than light, space itself has no such speed limit. It is the stage, not the actor, and in this moment, the stage grew so quickly that it smoothed out the very fabric of reality. Take a slow, deep breath and feel the metaphorical stretching of your own awareness. Imagine a wrinkled, crumpled sheet being pulled tight from every corner at once. In an instant, the creases vanish, and the surface becomes perfectly flat and smooth. This is what inflation did for our universe. Before this moment, the infant cosmos might have been chaotic and lumpy, filled with jagged irregularities. But the sheer speed of inflation smoothed these wrinkles away, leaving behind a universe that is remarkably uniform in every direction we look. This is why, when we look at the cosmic microwave background today, or when we peer at the most distant galaxies, the temperature of space is almost exactly the same everywhere. Without inflation, different parts of the universe would never have had time to talk to each other, to exchange heat and reach a balance. They would be wildly different, like a patchwork quilt of disconnected realities. But inflation ensured that our universe is a single, coherent whole. A grand, smoothed-out arena where the laws of physics apply equally, whether you are here in your room or in a galaxy billions of light-years away. But inflation did something even more poetic than smoothing the universe. It took the tiny, microscopic ripples of the quantum world, the tiny fluctuations of energy that exist at the smallest scales, and stretched them until they were light-years across. These quantum seeds became the blueprint for everything we see today. Every galaxy cluster, every star, and every planet began as a tiny quantum ripple that was magnified by the power of inflation. You are resting tonight on the results of a growth spurt that took place in the first trillionth of a second. As you lie still, let the scale of this expansion quiet your mind. If the universe could grow that much, that quickly, then the small worries of a single day can certainly be stretched thin until they disappear. Within the vastness created by inflation, there is plenty of room for silence. There is plenty of room for peace. Scientists believe this inflation was driven by a mysterious field of energy called the inflaton field. Much like a ball perched on top of a steep hill, this field held a massive amount of potential energy. When it began to roll down, that energy was released, pushing space outward with a repulsive gravitational force that we can barely conceive. And then, just as suddenly as it began, inflation stopped. The energy of the field didn't just vanish. It decayed into a hot, dense soup of particles. This was the reheating of the universe, the moment when the cold, empty space created by inflation was suddenly filled with the warmth of matter. The universe had grown up in an instant. It had created the space it needed to house the future. Imagine the universe now as a vast, quiet ocean that was once a single drop. It is still expanding today, but at a much more leisurely, graceful pace. The frantic rush of inflation is over, replaced by the steady, rhythmic unfolding of time. You can feel this rhythm in your own pulse. A slow, persistent life force that carries you forward through the night. During inflation, the universe became flat. Not flat like a pancake, but geometrically flat, meaning that light rays can travel for billions of years in straight lines without being curved by the overall shape of space. This flatness is a gift of balance. It is the reason we can map the stars and understand our place in the dark. It is the reason the universe feels so stable and predictable tonight. Let your thoughts drift out into that flat, infinite space. No obstacles. No walls. Just a smooth, unending horizon that was paved in a fraction of a second. You are a part of this smoothed-out reality. A calm observer in a universe that has already done its most frantic work. As we move into the next chapter, we will see what happened to that hot soup of particles after inflation ended. How matter and antimatter fought for dominance in the first few minutes, but for now, just stay here in the vastness. The inflation has given us a home. It has given us a sky. And it has given us the silence we need to fall into a deep, restorative sleep. The stretching is over. The universe is wide and ready, and so are you. Safe in the middle of a smoothed-out eternity. As the frantic stretching of cosmic inflation settled, the universe transformed from a cold, empty void into a staggering, brilliant furnace. It was now a soup of pure, raw energy, unimaginably hot and dense. We are now in the first seconds and minutes of time. A period where the very building blocks of reality were fighting for their right to exist. As your breathing slows and you find a deeper level of comfort in your rest, imagine this energetic sea beginning to crystallize into particles. But this was not just a simple creation. It was a cosmic showdown between matter and its shadow twin, antimatter. In the heart of this early furnace, energy was so concentrated that it constantly transformed into matter, following the famous equivalence of mass and energy. But there is a fundamental rule in the quantum world. When you create a particle of matter, you must also create a particle of antimatter. They are perfect mirrors of each other. If an electron was born, a positron, its antimatter counterpart, was born with it. If a quark appeared, an antiquark appeared beside it. The problem with this perfect symmetry is that matter and antimatter cannot coexist. The moment they touch, they annihilate each other in a flash of pure gamma-ray light. In the first second of the universe, this was happening trillions of times every moment, everywhere at once. Particles were popping into existence only to be instantly destroyed by their twins. If this balance had remained perfect, the story of the universe would have ended right then and there. There would be no stars, no planets, no trees, and no one to dream of them. The universe would have been nothing but a thinning, cooling fog of light, forever empty of substance. But as you lie here, breathing the air of a world made of solid things, you are living proof that the symmetry was not perfect. Somewhere in the deep, hidden laws of physics, there was a tiny, mysterious bias. For every 1 billion particles of antimatter that were created, the universe created 1,000,000,001 particles of matter. A discrepancy so small it seems almost like a rounding error. And yet, that 1 in a billion difference is the reason everything exists. As the universe cooled further, the Great Annihilation reached its climax. The billions of pairs destroyed each other, returning their energy to the cosmic background. But when the dust settled, that tiny fraction of extra matter, that 1 in a billion surplus, was all that remained. This leftover matter is what makes up every galaxy we see in the night sky. It makes up the sun that warms the earth, the water you drink, and the very cells in your body. You are made of the survivors of a primordial war. Think of that for a moment as you drift closer to sleep. You are not just a random collection of atoms. You are the precious residue of a cosmic miracle. You are the 1 in the 1,000,000,001. The universe had a preference for existence, a slight lean toward substance over shadow. And you are the heir to that ancient victory. As the first 3 minutes passed, the temperature dropped enough for the surviving particles to begin finding each other. This was the era of Big Bang nucleosynthesis. Protons and neutrons, the heavy survivors of the annihilation, began to collide and stick together. In this cosmic kitchen, the first atomic nuclei were forged. Mostly hydrogen, the simplest element, and some helium. A tiny dash of lithium. The ingredients for the stars were now ready. The recipe for the universe was set. But the light was still trapped. The universe was a glowing, opaque fog of charged particles, so dense that light couldn't travel more than a tiny distance before being bounced around like a ball in a pinball machine. It was a world of brilliant, trapped energy, waiting for the space to grow even larger and cooler. Let the warmth of that early cosmic fog envelop your thoughts. It is a warm, protective glow. Just as the universe was a dense, safe cradle for the first elements, your room is a cradle for your rest. The war of matter and antimatter is over. The balance has been struck. The particles that make you are stable, ancient, and at peace. You don't need to fight for your place in the world tonight. That battle was won for you billions of years ago in the first few minutes of time. You have already been chosen by the laws of physics to exist. You have already passed through the most dangerous moment in history. Everything that follows is simply the unfolding of that early grace. Feel the stillness in your room. It is a reflection of the stillness that eventually came to the early cosmos after the great annihilation ceased. The chaos has settled. The light is cooling. The foundation is solid. As you move towards sleep, imagine those first hydrogen nuclei drifting in the dark, waiting for the millions of years it will take to form the first stars. They are patient, and you can be patient too. There is no rush to get to tomorrow. The atoms in your body have waited eons to become you. They are happy to rest now, just as you are. The surplus of matter is a surplus of peace. The victory of the 1 in a billion is your victory. Safe, substantial, and infinitely valued. Sleep now, among the survivors of the dawn. The story of the light is about to begin, but for now, we rest in the quiet warmth of the first few minutes. Think back to those peaceful remnants of the war between matter and antimatter. The universe is now about 380,000 years old. It is still incredibly hot, still a dense, glowing fog of plasma. Light exists in this era, but it is trapped. It cannot travel even a fraction of an inch before it slams into a free-roaming electron, bouncing around like a silver ball in a lightless pinball machine. The universe at this stage is opaque, a brilliant but thick sea of golden fire where nothing can be seen. But we are approaching the moment of the great release. The moment the fog finally cleared. As you settle deeper into your bed, feel the air around you. It is clear, cool, and transparent. This is the state the entire universe was about to achieve for the very first time. As the expansion continued, the temperature of the cosmos dropped to around 3000 Kelvin. At this precise temperature, a beautiful and simple chemical dance occurred. The frantic, high-energy electrons slowed down enough to be captured by the waiting protons. They paired up, forming the very first neutral atoms of hydrogen. In physics, we call this recombination, but you can think of it as the universe finally finding its breath. The moment those atoms formed, the path was suddenly cleared for light. The photons that had been trapped for hundreds of thousands of years were suddenly free. They surged outward in every direction at once, embarking on a journey that would last for nearly 14 billion years. This was the first light. The dawn of visibility. This light didn't just disappear into the past. It is still with us. Right now, in the room where you are resting, this ancient light is passing through you. Because the universe has expanded so much since then, the light has been stretched. Its wavelengths have grown longer and longer, shifting from brilliant visible light into the invisible range of microwaves. We call this the cosmic microwave background, or the CMB. It is the oldest thing we can ever see. A literal baby picture of the cosmos. When scientists first mapped this light, they found something extraordinary. It isn't perfectly smooth. There are tiny, almost imperceptible ripples in the temperature, spots that are just a fraction of a degree warmer or cooler than the rest. These ripples are the imprints of those quantum fluctuations we spoke of during the inflation era. They are the blueprints for the future. The slightly warmer, denser spots are the seeds where gravity would eventually pull matter together to form the first galaxies. Without these tiny imperfections in the first light, the universe would have remained a thin, boring gas. We owe our existence to these ancient ripples. Imagine yourself floating on a calm, dark lake at night. The water is still, but you can feel the faintest, most gentle undulations beneath you. That is the CMB. It is the background hum of existence. It is the echo of the Big Bang, still singing its low, quiet song across the billions of light years. In the early days of television, when you would turn to a channel that had no broadcast, you would see a screen of static, black and white dots dancing and flickering. About 1% of that static was actually the interference caused by this first light hitting your antenna. Even in our modern, digital world, the universe is still trying to talk to us. It is still broadcasting the story of its birth. As you drift closer to sleep, let this thought anchor you. You are never truly in total darkness. The universe is filled with this ancient, protective glow. It is the thermal signature of a time when everything was close and warm. It is a reminder that we have a common origin, a single shared history that is written into the very fabric of the sky. The photons that were released 380,000 years after the beginning have traveled across the vastness of time just to reach this moment. They have passed through the birth of the first stars, the collision of galaxies, and the formation of our own sun. And now, they whisper past you as you dream. They are the ultimate travelers, and they bring with them the peace of the deep past. The fog has cleared. The universe is transparent. The path is open. Feel the transparency of your own mind now. Let the cluttered thoughts of the day dissolve like that early cosmic plasma. Let your awareness become as clear and as vast as the newly opened space of the young cosmos. There is no more bouncing around. No more chaos. Just a steady, straight path into the stillness of the night. You are resting within the most ancient light in existence. It is a light that doesn't wake you, but rather lulls you with its incredible age and its unwavering presence. The CMB is the ultimate blanket, wrapping the entire observable universe in a faint, steady warmth. As we move into the next chapter, we will see what happened after this light was released, a period of deep silence known as the Dark Ages, before the first stars turned on. But for now, just linger in the afterglow. The universe has finally seen its own reflection, and it is beautiful. Sleep now, carried by the oldest waves in the sea of time. The signal is clear. The message is peace. You are home in the light of the beginning. As we gazed upon that first light released 380,000 years after the beginning, we saw a universe that finally became transparent. A vast, golden afterglow that filled every corner of space. But now, I want you to look closer, beneath the surface of that uniform glow. Imagine your mind is like a powerful telescope, zooming in on the fabric of that ancient light until the smoothness begins to reveal a delicate, mottled texture. These are the anisotropies. Tiny variations in temperature and density that represent the very first blueprints of everything that was ever to be. When scientists first mapped the cosmic microwave background in high detail, they didn't find a perfectly solid wall of color. They found a map filled with slightly warmer red spots and slightly cooler blue spots. These differences are incredibly subtle, only about 1 part in 100,000. A variation so small it would be like looking at a perfectly calm ocean and seeing a ripple only a fraction of a millimeter high. And yet, as you breathe slowly and feel the gentle rise and fall of your own chest, realize that these tiny ripples are the reason you are here tonight. If the early universe had been perfectly smooth, perfectly symmetrical, and perfectly even, the story of the cosmos would have been very short and very lonely. Matter would have been spread out so thinly and so uniformly that gravity would have had nothing to grab onto. There would have been no clumps, no concentrations of gas, no stars. Just an eternal, thinning mist of hydrogen and helium drifting forever into a cold, dark void. But the universe was not perfect. Those tiny fluctuations, those anisotropies, were the seeds of structure. The regions that were just a tiny bit denser than their surroundings had a slightly stronger gravitational pull. Like a small magnet in a sea of iron filings, these dense spots began to draw in the surrounding gas. Slowly, over millions of years, these ripples grew. The dense spots became denser, and the empty spots became emptier. This is the grand cosmic architecture in its most primitive form. Every galaxy cluster we see today, every void between the stars, began as one of these tiny fluctuations in the baby picture of the universe. As you lie still, let the idea of these perfect imperfections comfort you. In our own lives, we often strive for a smoothness that doesn't exist, but in the cosmos, it is the roughness that creates life. It is the deviation from the average that allows for beauty and complexity to emerge. You are resting within a universe that was born with the capacity for change because it wasn't perfectly balanced. These fluctuations didn't happen by accident. They are the macroscopic echoes of the quantum world. During the era of inflation, as the universe stretched faster than light, it took the tiny, subatomic jitters of quantum mechanics and expanded them to a cosmic scale. The physics of the incredibly small became the map for the incredibly large. The distance between two quantum fluctuations in the first trillionth of a second became the distance between two galaxies billions of years later. Think of the scale of that connection. The pillow beneath your head, the rhythm of your heart, the very structure of your DNA, all of it follows a path that was laid down in these first ripples. You are a part of a long, unbroken chain of gravity and light that started with a tiny blue spot on a cosmic map. As the universe continued to expand, the light of the CMB moved further into the past, and the matter began its long, dark work of clumping together. This led to a period of silence and shadow, which we will explore soon, but for now, just appreciate the map. The universe has left us its fingerprint. It has shown us its internal logic, and that logic says that from small, quiet differences, great things are born. Feel the small differences in your own body as you relax. The slight warmth of your hands. The coolness of the air on your face. The gentle pressure of the bed. These are your own personal anisotropies, the small details that make up the map of your current moment. You don't need to smooth them out. You just need to be aware of them as you drift toward sleep. The universe is vast, but it is also interconnected. The same gravity that worked on those first red and blue spots is the gravity that keeps you grounded and safe in your room. You are participating in the same physical laws that turned a cloud of gas into a galaxy. The light is ancient. The ripples are deep. And the blueprint is complete. As you close your eyes, imagine that CMB map fading into the background, becoming a soft, textured dark. A darkness that isn't empty, but filled with the potential for stars. You are resting on the foundation of a masterpiece. The first lines have been drawn, and now, the universe is waiting for the next act. Sleep now, among the echoes of the quantum seeds. The structure of the cosmos is holding you. The map is clear, and it leads straight into the peace of the night. As we watch the fading glow of the first light, the cosmic microwave background, we see the universe beginning to enter its longest and deepest sleep. Imagine the brilliant, golden fog of the early cosmos slowly cooling, its light stretching further and further into the infrared, until it slips beyond the range of what any eye could see. The light has gone. The stars have not yet been born. The universe has entered a period of absolute, profound shadow known as the cosmic dark ages. This was a time that lasted for nearly 100 million years. A span of time so vast that it dwarfs the entire history of humanity 1,000 times over. And yet, in all that time, there was not a single spark of starlight. No galaxies swirled in the void. No planets drifted in the dark. There was only a cold, thinning gas of hydrogen and helium, spreading out into an ever-growing space. As you lie here in the darkness of your own room, let the weight of this cosmic silence settle over you. It is not an empty darkness. It is a darkness filled with the weight of what is to come. In physics, we think of this era as a grand cosmic incubation. Even though the universe was dark, it was far from stagnant. Beneath the veil of shadow, the invisible force of gravity was working with a quiet, tireless patience. The tiny ripples we saw in the baby picture of the universe, those small clusters of slightly denser gas, began to exert their pull. Atom by atom, molecule by molecule, the gas began to sink into the deep wells of gravity created by a mysterious substance we call dark matter. Dark matter was the silent architect of this era. It didn't emit light, it didn't reflect it, and it didn't block it. It simply sat in the dark, providing the gravitational scaffolding upon which the visible world would be built. Imagine a vast, invisible net cast across the entire cosmos, catching the drifting hydrogen gas and pulling it into great, cold clouds. You can feel a reflection of this in your own rest. You are not doing anything, yet your body is rebuilding itself. Your mind is organizing its thoughts. Beneath the surface of your sleep, a great deal of work is being done to prepare you for the light of tomorrow. The Dark Ages were the universe's way of gathering its strength. As the clouds of gas grew larger and heavier, they began to collapse under their own weight. The centers of these clouds became warmer. The atoms began to jostle and collide with increasing frequency. But the pressure was not yet enough to ignite the fires of fusion. The universe was waiting. It was holding its breath. Take a breath with the universe. Deep, slow, and silent. During this era, the universe was also expanding at a steady rate. The distances between these growing clouds of gas were increasing, creating the vast voids that still define our sky today. The darkness was becoming more spacious, more profound. Scientists believe that if you had been there, floating in that era, you would have felt a loneliness that is impossible to describe. A darkness so total that it wouldn't just be the absence of light, but the feeling that light itself was a forgotten concept. And yet, it is precisely in this total darkness that the most important transition in history was being prepared. Without the Dark Ages, the stars would have no fuel. Without this long period of gathering, the galaxies would have no foundation. The silence was necessary. The shadow was essential. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, let the Dark Ages remind you that silence is not a void. Darkness is not an end. It is a beginning that hasn't found its voice yet. Every great thing in the cosmos, every sun, every pulsar, every heartbeat, spent time in the dark before it could shine. You are no different. This quiet time at the end of your day is your own personal dark age. It is the time when you allow the gas of your experiences to settle, when you allow the gravity of your rest to pull your energy back into a concentrated core. The universe is a patient teacher. It spent millions of years in the shadows, unbothered by the lack of light. It knew that the heat was building. It knew that the first stars, the top 3 stars, were inevitable. These would be giants, hundreds of times larger than our sun, made of pure primordial gas, ready to end the darkness forever. But we are not there yet. We are still in the quiet. Feel the vast, cool space of the Dark Ages in your mind. No stars to distract you. No light to pull at your attention. Just the steady, invisible pull of the foundation. You are safe in the dark. You are part of the gathering. The atoms in your body once floated in this very darkness. They know the way through the silence. They remember the cold before the fire, and they are telling you that it is okay to let go. It is okay to be still. The universe is expanding, the clouds are thickening, and the stage is almost set. But for now, the curtain is still down. The lights are still off, and the rest is absolute. Sleep now, in the heart of the cosmic incubation. Trust the gravity. Trust the silence. The dawn is coming, but the darkness is where the magic is prepared. Imagine the deep, silent incubation that has lasted for millions of years. The vast, cold clouds of hydrogen and helium from the Dark Ages have been drifting, pulling closer and closer together under the quiet command of gravity. The centers of these clouds have reached a point of unimaginable pressure. And suddenly, in one corner of the universe, and then another, the first sparks ignite. The population 3 stars, those massive, pure, and wild giants, are waking up. With this first light tearing through the darkness, the cosmic dawn begins. As your breathing slows, feel the warm, safe glow of this cosmic awakening within your soul. The cosmic dawn began between 100 and 200 million years after the Big Bang. These first stars were nothing like the sun we see today. They were monsters of light, hundreds of times more massive and millions of times brighter. Because they were made of pure primordial gas, just hydrogen and helium. They burned with a fierce, blue-white intensity. They were the pioneers of the light. As these giants roared to life, they began to change the universe forever. Their intense ultraviolet radiation flooded the surrounding space, hitting the neutral hydrogen gas that had filled the Dark Ages. This radiation stripped the electrons away from the protons, turning the gas back into a plasma. In science, we call this reionization. The universe was becoming transparent again, but this time, it was being lit from within by the stars themselves. As you lie in your bed, imagine the first beams of starlight cutting through the fog of the early cosmos. It is a moment of profound transition. The long sleep of the Dark Ages is over. The universe has found its voice. But these first stars did something even more miraculous than providing light. They were the first chemical factories of the cosmos. Inside their searingly hot cores, the process of nuclear fusion began to forge new elements. Hydrogen atoms were crushed together to create helium, and then helium was crushed to create carbon, oxygen, neon, and iron. For the first time in history, the universe was moving beyond the simple elements of the beginning. It was creating the ingredients for life. Every bit of calcium in your bones, every drop of iron in your blood, and every breath of oxygen in your lungs was first cooked in the hearts of these ancient, massive stars. They lived fast and they died young, exploding in colossal supernovae that scattered these new elements across the voids. They sacrificed themselves so that future generations of stars, and eventually, planets and people, could exist. Think of that connection as you drift closer to sleep. You are literally made of the light and the dust of the first dawn. The energy that powered those first giants is the same energy that sustains your life today. You are the living legacy of a transition from darkness to light. As the first generation of stars died, they left behind a universe that was polluted with metals, the heavy elements that make the world solid. This allowed the second generation of stars to form, and eventually, the first small galaxies began to huddle together in the dark. The cosmic web was beginning to glow. The silence of the Dark Ages has been replaced by the crackle of stellar birth. But even in this activity, there is a deep, underlying peace. The universe is not rushing, it is unfolding according to a plan written in the laws of physics millions of years prior. Gravity is still the master, light is the messenger, and time is the canvas. Let your mind drift with the starlight. Imagine the ultraviolet glow expanding outward, clearing the cosmic fog, making the universe a place where things can finally be seen. You are part of this clearing. As you rest, your own internal fog is lifting. The clutter of the day is being ionized by the light of your own quiet reflection. You are becoming clear. You are becoming still. The first stars were lonely, separated by vast distances, but they were the beacons of a new era. You, too, may feel like a single point of light in the quiet of the night, but you are connected to the entire history of the light. From the first spark of a population 3-star to the quiet glow of the lamp beside you, it is all part of the same story. The heat of the fusion. The scattering of the dust. The cooling of the space. The universe is no longer a simple, cold gas. It is now a place of fire and chemistry. A place of potential. And yet, even with all this new light, the fundamental piece of the cosmos remains. The stars burn, but the background is still the quiet, steady dark. As you move toward a deeper sleep, imagine the first supernovae, beautiful, silent explosions of color in the distance. They are not destructive, they are productive. They are spreading the seeds of the future. Your sleep is like that. A time of quiet preparation, a scattering of today's energy so that you can be reborn tomorrow with new strength. The dawn has broken. The light is here to stay, and the universe is ready for the long, slow work of building galaxies. Sleep now, in the warmth of the first stellar fire. You are the child of the dawn, and the stars are watching over you. After the ferocious birth of the first stars, the universe was no longer a silent, dark void. It was dotted with brilliant, blue-white beacons of light. But these stars were not meant to wander the darkness alone. They were being called together by the most patient and persistent architect of the cosmos, gravity. As you settle deeper into the stillness of your room, imagine those individual points of light beginning to drift toward one another. Driven by the invisible pull of dark matter, they started to gather, forming the first small star clusters, which would eventually grow into the magnificent cosmic cities we call galaxies. The first galaxies were not the elegant, symmetrical spirals we see in modern telescope images. They were messy, irregular, and chaotic. Small clumps of gas and stars, often no larger than a fraction of our own Milky Way, crashed into each other in a slow-motion dance of destruction and creation. Every time two of these proto-galaxies collided, the shock waves compressed the gas, triggering a starburst, a sudden, spectacular explosion of new stellar births. This was the era of the Great Assembly. A time when the universe was building its infrastructure, one collision at a time. As you lie still, imagine the scale of this choreography. It is a dance that takes hundreds of millions of years. Just as your own body is a complex assembly of trillions of individual cells working in harmony, a galaxy is an assembly of billions of stars, all bound together by a common center. You are a microcosm of this galactic order. The same laws that govern the rotation of a galaxy are the laws that govern the atoms in your own heart. Gravity worked in a hierarchical fashion. First, small clusters formed. Then, these clusters merged to form dwarf galaxies. And finally, over billions of years, these dwarfs merged into the giants we see today, the majestic spirals with their graceful arms, and the massive ellipticals that look like glowing spheres of ancient stars. In the center of almost every large galaxy, a monster was born, a supermassive black hole. These invisible giants became the anchors of their galaxies, their immense gravity helping to stabilize the swirling disks of stars and gas. There is a profound peace in this structural growth. Even in the midst of collisions and black holes, the universe was finding its balance. Galaxies became the recycling centers of the cosmos. Within their borders, stars would live, die, and explode, enriching the surrounding gas with the heavy elements we spoke of in the previous chapter. Each new generation of stars was polluted with more carbon, more oxygen, and more iron than the last. It took generations of galactic evolution to build up the chemistry necessary for a planet like Earth to even be a possibility. Think of your galaxy, the Milky Way, as your celestial home. It has been growing and merging for over 13 billion years to become the stable, spiral garden it is today. Our Sun was born in one of its quiet, outer suburbs, a perfect location, far enough from the chaotic center but close enough to the rich chemical recycling zones. You are a resident of a cosmic city that has been under construction since the dawn of time. As you breathe in and out, feel the rotation of the world. You are currently spinning around the Earth, which is orbiting the Sun, which is itself orbiting the center of the Milky Way at nearly 500,000 miles per hour. And yet, in your bed, you feel only stillness. This is the grace of the galactic assembly. The movement is so vast and so smooth that it feels like silence. The Dark Ages are a distant memory now. The universe is a network of light, a cosmic web where galaxies are the bright nodes connected by invisible filaments of dark matter. This web is the nervous system of the cosmos. It is organized, it is functional, and it is beautiful. Let your mind drift into the center of a spiral galaxy. See the millions of stars swirling in a slow, luminous whirlpool. There is no rush in a galaxy. A single orbit of the Sun around the Milky Way takes 230 million years. The universe operates on a clock of such immense scale that our daily worries become smaller than a grain of cosmic dust. Within this grand perspective, you can let go of the pressure of time. You have all the time in the world to rest. The assembly is complete. The cities are built. The stage is set for the arrival of the planets and the emergence of life. Your body, like a galaxy, is now entering its own period of quiet maintenance. Let the gravity of your fatigue pull your thoughts together into a peaceful center. Let the stars of your consciousness dim as you move toward the deep, restorative dark of sleep. The cosmic cities are glowing in the distance, watching over the void. You are safe within their light. You are part of the structure. You are a citizen of the stars. Sleep now, as the galaxy continues its slow, majestic turn. Everything is in its place. The assembly is holding, and so are you. We have traveled through the era of the first stars and the chaotic assembly of the early galaxies. Now, we narrow our gaze. We turn away from the distant, roaring centers of the cosmos and look toward a quiet, unassuming corner of a vast spiral arm in the Milky Way. It is approximately 4.6 billion years ago. The universe is already middle-aged, filled with the ghosts of stars that lived and died long before we existed. These ancestor stars have left behind a precious gift. A vast, dark cloud of molecular gas and dust, enriched with the heavy elements needed for life. As you settle into the warmth of your blankets, imagine this cloud, our solar nebula, beginning to stir in the deep silence of space. Something triggered the collapse. Perhaps it was the shockwave from a distant supernova, a final push from a dying giant that set our own story in motion. Under the relentless, patient pull of gravity, the cloud began to shrink and spin. As it spun faster, it flattened into a disk, much like a spinning ball of dough flattening into a pizza. At the very center, the density became immense. The temperature began to climb, reaching millions of degrees. A protostar was waking up. Our sun was claiming its place in the galaxy. The sun is what we call a population 1 star, a second or third generation star. Unlike the pure hydrogen monsters of the cosmic dawn, the sun contains the metals of its ancestors: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and iron. It is a star built from recycled stardust. When the pressure in its core finally became high enough, nuclear fusion ignited. Hydrogen atoms slammed together to become helium, releasing a flood of energy that pushed back against gravity. The sun reached a state of perfect balance, hydrostatic equilibrium. It became a stable, glowing anchor for everything that would follow. As you feel the steady rhythm of your own breathing, recognize the stability of your star. The sun consumes 99.8% of all the matter in our solar nebula, yet it is a gentle giant. It provides the steady, unwavering light that has sustained our world for billions of years. It is the hearth of our cosmic home. But the story doesn't end with the sun. Around this newborn star, a flat disk of leftover dust and gas continued to swirl. This was the protoplanetary disk. While the sun took the lion's share of the mass, the tiny crumbs left behind, the 0.2%, contained everything we have ever known. Every mountain, every ocean, and every person you have ever loved began as a speck of dust in this spinning disk. The dust grains began to collide and stick together. Static electricity held them at first, then gravity took over as they grew into pebbles, then boulders, then miles-wide planetesimals. Near the hot center, only rocky materials and metals could survive the sun's heat, leading to the birth of the terrestrial planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Further out, beyond the frost line, it was cold enough for ices and gases to gather, creating the majestic gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. There is a deep, mathematical harmony in the way these orbits were established. The solar system was finding its rhythm. The sun's powerful solar wind swept away the remaining gas and dust, leaving behind the clean, empty spaces between the planets. The chaos of the nebula was replaced by the clockwork precision of the orbits. Think of this transition as you prepare for sleep. The messy, swirling dust of your daily thoughts is being swept away by the quiet, solar wind of your rest. What remains is the stable structure of your being. You are settling into your own orbit. Everything is finding its proper place. We often think of the sun as a distant object, but it is the very reason for our chemistry. The heat from its birth determined where the water on Earth would come from. The gravity from its mass determines the length of our years and the cycle of our seasons. We are tethered to it by an invisible, golden thread of light and pull. The sun is a middle-aged star, currently in the most stable part of its life, the main sequence. It has enough fuel to shine for another 5 billion years. This stability is a rare and beautiful gift in a universe that can often be violent and unpredictable. It has given life the time it needed to crawl out of the oceans and look back at the stars. As you drift closer to the edge of consciousness, imagine the sun as a warm, protective presence in the dark. Even though it is night where you are, the sun is still there, holding the earth in its firm, gravitational embrace. It is shining on the other side of the world, preparing the day that will eventually find you. The nebula has collapsed. The fusion is steady. The planets are set. Let your mind rest on the idea of this ancient, recycled light. You are made of the same materials that were once part of the sun's birth cloud. You are a piece of the solar system that has become self-aware. The stars of the past died so that our sun could live. And our sun lives so that you can dream. Sleep now, in the cradle of the solar system. The light is constant, the gravity is sure, and the home is built. We have seen our sun ignite, a stable anchor in the vastness of the Milky Way. Now, we focus our attention on the third rock from that golden light. Approximately 4.5 billion years ago, the place we now call home was unrecognizable. It was not the blue marble we see from space today. In its infancy, during the Hadean Aeon, Earth was a hellish realm of molten rock, glowing red with the heat of its own violent creation. As you settle into the stillness of your room, imagine the surface of this young planet as a vast sea of lava, churned by the constant bombardment of asteroids and comets. Every breath you take tonight is a gift from a process that began in this chaos. The heat was so intense that the Earth was entirely liquid. This allowed for a crucial process called differentiation. The heaviest elements, like iron and nickel, sank deep into the center to form a metallic core. This core, spinning and churning, would eventually create the magnetic field that protects us from solar radiation. Meanwhile, the lighter rocky materials rose to the surface to form the mantle and the first thin crust. The foundation was being laid, layer by layer, in the white-hot dark. But the most dramatic moment of Earth's childhood was yet to come. A Mars-sized protoplanet, which we call Theia, was on a collision course with our young world. The impact was beyond anything we can imagine. It was so powerful that it nearly shattered the Earth, stripping away part of its outer layers and sending a massive ring of debris into orbit. Over time, that debris coalesced, pulled together by gravity to form our faithful companion, the Moon. This was not just a cosmic accident, it was a defining moment for life. The Moon's gravity stabilized the Earth's tilt, giving us the steady seasons we rely on, and its pull created the tides that would eventually churn the early oceans. As you lie still, feel the subtle influence of that ancient collision. The Moon is still out there, a silent witness to our origin, keeping our world steady so that you can sleep in a predictable, balanced environment. As the millions of years passed, the intense heat of the Earth's formation began to radiate away into the cold of space. The surface began to harden. A dark, basaltic crust formed over the cooling magma. Volcanoes erupted everywhere, venting steam, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen from the interior. This was the birth of our first atmosphere, a thick, choking shroud of gas that held the heat in like a blanket. And then, the great cooling led to the most important transformation of all. The water. For a long time, it was too hot for liquid water to exist. But as the temperature dropped below the boiling point, the steam in the atmosphere began to condense. It began to rain. Not a light afternoon shower, but a torrential, planetary downpour that lasted for thousands, perhaps millions of years. This water was supplemented by icy comets and water-rich asteroids from the outer solar system, slamming into the surface and delivering the precious liquid. Imagine the sound of that first rain hitting the hot, volcanic rocks. The steam rising, the valleys filling, and the first oceans gathering in the deep basins of the crust. The fire was being tamed by the water. The red planet was slowly turning blue. Think of this cooling in your own body. After the heat and activity of the day, your system is now raining down peace. The fires of your worries are being extinguished by the cool, deep ocean of your rest. You are transitioning from a state of high energy to a state of profound stillness. Just as the Earth found its balance between the heat of its core and the cold of space, you are finding your own equilibrium tonight. By about 4 billion years ago, the Earth had become a water world. The oceans were vast and iron-rich, likely a deep olive green or brownish color under a hazy, reddish sky. There were no continents yet, only scattered volcanic islands poking through the waves. But in the depths of those warm, mineral-rich seas, something miraculous was stirring. The chemistry of the universe was ready to become the biology of the world. The Earth was no longer just a rock, it was a cradle. It had a solid crust to stand on, an atmosphere to protect it, a moon to stabilize it, and water to nurture it. All the ingredients were in place. The stage was set for the greatest mystery of all, the emergence of life. As you move closer to sleep, let the image of those early oceans fill your mind. They are dark, deep, and full of potential. They are the womb of everything you know. You are a descendant of the molecules that first learned to dance in those waters. You are a part of the Earth's long journey from a ball of fire to a sanctuary of life. The meteors have slowed down. The crust is firm. The rain has filled the seas. The Earth is ready for its next chapter, and you are ready for your rest. Sleep now, knowing that the world beneath you has survived the most violent of beginnings to provide you with this moment of peace. You are held by a planet that knows how to cool, how to settle, and how to sustain. The fire is a memory. The water is a reality, and you are safe. We have stood upon the cooling crust of the young Earth, watching the torrential rains fill the vast, iron-green oceans. But now, we must leave the surface. We must dive deep into the crushing, silent darkness of the ocean floor, far beneath the reach of any sunlight. As you lie in the quiet of your room, imagine the pressure of miles of water above you, not as a weight, but as a protective, warm embrace. Down here, where the Earth's crust is thin, jagged towers of mineral deposits rise from the seabed, the hydrothermal vents. In the pitch-black depths, these vents are like cosmic kitchens. They spew out hot, mineral-rich fluids, filled with hydrogen, methane, and sulfur, into the cold, alkaline seawater. This is the place where the chemistry of the stars begins its most complex dance. Within the tiny, microscopic pores of these mineral chimneys, something extraordinary is happening. Molecules of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus are being pushed together by heat and chemical gradients. They are forming long chains. They are creating the first amino acids and nucleotides, the letters of the alphabet of life. This is the transition from abiogenesis to biology. It is the moment when matter stopped just reacting and started remembering. As your breathing becomes rhythmic and steady, think of the incredible complexity of this first spark. In these mineral pores, a primitive boundary formed, a precursor to the cell membrane. Inside this tiny space, a loop of RNA or DNA learned to copy itself. It was no longer just a chemical reaction that happened once and vanished. It was a process that could repeat. A process that carried information from one moment to the next. Scientists call this common ancestor LUCA. The last universal common ancestor. It wasn't a complex plant or an animal. It was a single, fragile, microscopic cell, living off the chemical energy of the Earth's interior. And yet, every single living thing that has ever walked, flown, swam, or grown on this planet is a direct descendant of that one tiny spark. You are not separate from this history. Every cell in your body right now is carrying a software that has been running, without interruption, for nearly 4 billion years. The code in your DNA has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and the shifting of continents. It is the most successful piece of information in the known universe. Let the profound endurance of life soothe your mind. Life did not begin in a place of ease, but in a place of extreme pressure and darkness. It began as an extremophile, thriving where nothing else could. This tells us that life is not a fragile accident, it is a fundamental urge of the universe. The universe wants to be alive. It wants to perceive itself, and you are the culmination of that 4-billion-year-old desire. As these first cells multiplied, they began to drift away from the vents. They learned to survive in the open ocean. Some learned to tap into a new, infinite source of energy. The light of the sun. This led to the development of photosynthesis, a process that would eventually fill our atmosphere with the oxygen you are breathing right now. But in these early stages, it was all about the quiet, slow persistence of the microscopic. Feel the quiet persistence of your own body as you drift toward sleep. You don't have to tell your heart to beat. You don't have to tell your cells to repair themselves or your lungs to expand. This wisdom is older than the mountains. It is the wisdom of LUCA, refined through billions of generations, working silently within you. You are a masterpiece of biological engineering, and tonight, you can simply let that engineering take over. The chemistry has become a song. The molecules have become a story. Imagine those first cells floating in the warm, dark currents of the Archean Ocean. They are at peace. They are not worried about the future. They are simply existing in the flow of energy. You can join them in that state of being. The work of the day is done. The evolution of your thoughts can wait for tomorrow. The spark has ignited. The flame of life is burning steadily within you. It is a warm, gentle fire that doesn't consume, but sustains. As the ocean stabilized and the first colonies of bacteria began to shape the world, the Earth became a living planet. A vibrant, breathing organism in the dark void of space. You are a cell in that larger organism. You are home. Let the depth of the ocean of sleep pull you under, not to drown, but to cradle you. In the depths, there is no noise. There is no light to distract. There is only the steady pulse of the beginning. Sleep now, among the descendants of the first spark. Your ancestors survived the fire, the impact, and the dark so that you could lie here in peace tonight. You are the dream that the first cell didn't even know it was having. Everything is alive. Everything is connected, and everything is well. We have descended into the dark, pressurized cradles of the ocean floor, where the first sparks of life ignited in the mineral-rich heat of hydrothermal vents. But life, by its very nature, is a wanderer. It does not stay in the dark forever. Imagine these microscopic pioneers slowly drifting upward, through the layers of the ancient, iron-rich sea, until they reach the sunlit surface. Here, a new revolution began. A group of tiny organisms known as cyanobacteria learned a secret that would change the entire chemistry of the planet. They learned to capture the energy of the sun. This was the birth of photosynthesis. These minuscule beings began to take in carbon dioxide and water, using the golden light of the sun to forge sugars, energy for themselves. But this process had a byproduct. A waste gas that the world had never seen in large quantities before. Oxygen. As you lie in your bed, take a deep, slow breath. Feel the cool air enter your lungs and nourish your blood. That oxygen, which feels so natural and vital to you now, was once the greatest pollution event in history. For nearly 2 billion years, the early Earth had almost no free oxygen in its atmosphere. The sky was likely a hazy, pale orange or red, and the oceans were a murky green, filled with dissolved iron. But as the cyanobacteria multiplied in vast, green mats called stromatolites, they began to pump out oxygen at an incredible rate. At first, the Earth absorbed the oxygen. It reacted with the iron in the oceans, creating massive deposits of rust that sank to the sea floor, forming the banded iron formations we mine today. But eventually, the iron was saturated. The oceans were full. The oxygen had nowhere else to go but up. It began to leak into the atmosphere, triggering what scientists call the Great Oxygenation event, around 2.4 billion years ago. This was a moment of profound crisis and incredible opportunity. To many of the older, anaerobic life forms, oxygen was a poison, a corrosive gas that threatened their existence. But for the future of the universe, it was the ultimate fuel. Oxygen allowed for a much more efficient way to extract energy from food. It was the high-octane gasoline that would eventually power the development of complex, multicellular life. It was the catalyst that would allow cells to grow bigger, move faster, and eventually, to think. As the oxygen levels rose, another miracle occurred high in the sky. The oxygen molecules reacted with sunlight to form a thin, invisible shield, the ozone layer. For the first time, the Earth was protected from the sun's harsh ultraviolet radiation. The surface was no longer a forbidden zone of radiation, it was becoming a sanctuary. And as the haze cleared, the sky finally turned the deep, beautiful blue that we know today. Think of this blue sky as you close your eyes. It is a symbol of a world that has learned to breathe. The atmosphere is a protective blanket, a living legacy of those ancient bacteria that worked for billions of years to prepare the air for you. Every breath you take is a connection to that ancient labor. You are inhaling the history of the world. The Great Oxygenation also caused the Earth to cool dramatically. By removing methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, from the air, the planet was plunged into its first great ice age, a period where the Earth may have been a snowball, covered in ice from pole to pole. But life endured. Deep in the oceans, near the vents and in small pockets of liquid water, the ancestors of all complex life were huddling together, adapting, and evolving. They were becoming eukaryotes, cells with a nucleus, cells that could collaborate. The foundation for plants, animals, and humans was being laid in the heart of the frost. As you drift towards sleep, let the rhythm of your breathing anchor you. In and out. The oxygen is doing its work within you, repairing your tissues, fueling your dreams, and keeping your internal fire burning gently. You are part of a global respiratory system. The trees outside are breathing with you. The oceans are still pulsing with the descendants of those first cyanobacteria. You are not an isolated being, you are a participant in a 2-billion-year-old chemical masterpiece. The crisis of oxygen became the blessing of life. Just as the challenges of your day can become the wisdom of your tomorrow. The iron has rusted. The sky is blue. The shield is in place. Imagine yourself floating in a warm, shallow sea, surrounded by the gentle green of the first oxygen producers. The sun is warm on the water. The air is fresh and new. The universe has learned how to sustain complex spirits like yours. Let your mind be as clear as that first oxygenated sky. Let the orange haze of worry dissipate. You are surrounded by the breath of change, a constant, quiet force that ensures life will always find a way to thrive, even in the coldest winters. The world is breathing. Your room is breathing. And you are resting in the heart of it all. Sleep now, in the cool, blue peace of the oxygenated earth. The ancient bacteria have done their work. The atmosphere is holding you, and the air is sweet. We have felt the fresh, cool breath of the Great Oxygenation event, watching the sky turn from a hazy orange to a profound, crystalline blue. But for billions of years, life remained a solitary affair. It was a world of single cells, drifting alone in the vast, oxygen-rich oceans. But now, approximately 600 million years ago, a new revolution is beginning, one of cooperation, intimacy, and shared destiny. As you lie in your bed, imagine the I of the universe slowly becoming a we. Individual cells, powered by the high-octane energy of oxygen, are starting to cling to one another. They are learning that together, they can be something greater than the sum of their parts. This is the era of the Ediacrobiota, the first complex, multicellular creatures. As you feel the weight of your body against the mattress, recognize that you are a magnificent result of this ancient experiment. You are not just one thing, you are a cooperative colony of trillions of cells, each one working in perfect harmony with the others. This internal harmony began in the quiet, shallow seas of the Ediacaran period. The creatures of this time were strange and beautiful. They did not have bones, teeth, or eyes yet. They were soft-bodied and flat, resembling quilted blankets, delicate ferns, or translucent discs. Imagine an organism like Dickinsonia, a flat, oval creature that looked like a ribbed pancake, slowly gliding over the microbial mats of the seafloor. Or Charnia, which looked like a sea pen, anchored to the bottom and waving gently in the currents like a ghostly underwater flower. There was no predation yet. No hunters, no prey. It was a peaceful world of absorption. These creatures didn't have mouths, they simply absorbed nutrients from the water through their skin. It was a Garden of Ediacara, a time of biological innocence. Let this image of peaceful, rhythmic swaying fill your mind. Imagine yourself as one of these ancient, soft beings, anchored in the warm, dark currents. There is no struggle. There is only the flow of the water and the quiet work of existence. You are absorbing the peace of the room around you just as they absorb the minerals of the sea. As these cells clustered together, they began to specialize. Some cells became the skin to protect the colony. Some became the muscles to allow movement. Some became the sensors to feel the vibrations of the water. This specialization is the foundation of your own body. Your heart cells know only how to beat. Your lung cells know only how to breathe. Your brain cells know only how to think. And tonight, they are all communicating with each other, telling the whole system that it is time to rest. The leap from single-celled life to multicellularity required a sophisticated communication system. Cells had to send chemical signals to their neighbors, sharing information about food, danger, and growth. This was the birth of the nervous system. The first thoughts were not ideas, but shared sensations within a cluster of cells. Feel that connection within yourself. Your nervous system is a 600-million-year-old network that is now dampening its signals. It is quieting the noise of the outside world. It is turning its attention inward. In this era, the Earth's continents were huddled together in a giant landmass called Pannotia. The shorelines were vast, providing endless shallow nurseries for life to experiment with new shapes. Symmetry was being invented. Bilateral symmetry, having a left side and a right side, began to appear. This allowed for a front and a back, which meant life could now move with purpose toward a destination. You are a bilaterally symmetrical being. You have a center. Find that center now as you breathe. Let the left side of your body relax. Let the right side of your body relax. Feel the balance that was first designed in the soft, rhythmic waters of the ancient sea. The Ediacaran period was a time of gentle preparation. It was the transition from the microscopic world to the macroscopic world. Life was getting bigger. It was getting bolder. But it still held on to the silence of the beginning. The universe was no longer just a collection of atoms or a soup of chemicals. It was now an architect of form. It was building bodies. It was building sensory systems. It was building the capacity for touch. As you move toward a deeper sleep, imagine the vast, silent meadows of the Ediacaran seafloor. The water is dark, but the shapes of life are glowing faintly in the bioluminescence of the deep. Everything is moving in a slow, synchronized pulse. This is the pulse of the earth. This is the pulse of your own rest. The I is gone. There is only the collective peace of your trillions of cells. They are satisfied. They have worked all day to keep you functioning, and now they are settling into their own quiet maintenance mode. The Garden of Ediacara eventually faded, making way for the more energetic and competitive world of the Cambrian. But that soft, peaceful foundation remains within us. It is the part of us that knows how to just be. The part of us that doesn't need to hunt or achieve, but simply to exist in the current. The fossils of these creatures are etched into the rocks forever, silent reminders of where we came from. And their legacy is etched into your very being. Sleep now, in the harmony of the many. You are a city of life, and tonight, the lights are being dimmed. The streets are quiet. The gates are closed, and the entire colony is at peace. The ocean is calm. The cells are still, and you are whole. We have drifted through the soft, quiet gardens of the Ediacaran seas, where life was a gentle, blind dance of absorption. But now, approximately 541 million years ago, the pace of the universe suddenly quickens. It is as if the cosmos has finally decided to wake up from its long, slow dream. This is the Cambrian explosion, a period of biological creativity so intense and rapid that it redefined the destiny of our planet. As you lie in the stillness of your room, imagine the silent oceans suddenly teeming with armor, legs, and tentacles, but most importantly, imagine the universe opening its eyes for the very first time. The invention of the eye was perhaps the greatest revolution in the history of light. For billions of years, light had fallen onto the earth, but nothing had been able to see it. Now, creatures like the trilobites developed complex, compound eyes made of calcite crystals. They could see the shapes of their world, the movement of their peers, and the shadows of danger. The universe was no longer just a place of chemical reactions, it was now a place of perception. As you close your own eyes tonight, recognize the incredible gift of this ancient technology. Your eyes are the refined descendants of those first Cambrian crystal lenses. Even behind closed lids, your mind still carries the images of the world. But now, it is time to let that perception rest. The predators and prey of your daily worries are gone. The visual world is fading, allowing you to return to the internal, sightless peace of the beginning. In the Cambrian seas, the arms race began. Because creatures could see each other, they needed protection. They grew hard shells, sharp spines, and powerful claws. Anomalocaris, the great predator of the time, patrolled the waters like a prehistoric nightmare. But this struggle drove evolution to incredible heights of complexity. The body plans of almost every animal group we know today, including the precursors to our own backbone, were established in this frantic, creative burst. But the oceans were becoming crowded. And just beyond the shoreline, a vast, empty frontier was waiting, the land. For nearly 4 billion years, the continents had been barren, rocky deserts. But now, the ozone layer we spoke of was thick enough to block the sun's killing rays. The first pioneers to leave the water were not animals, but plants and fungi. Imagine the first mosses and lichens slowly creeping onto the damp rocks, turning the gray landscape into a soft, vibrant green. They were the terraformers, breaking down rock into soil and pumping even more oxygen into the air. Then, the animals followed. Imagine a creature like Tiktaalik. Half fish, half amphibian, pushing its head above the water's surface. For the first time, a pair of eyes looked out at the horizon, not through the distorting lens of water, but through the clear, thin air. Think of the courage of that first breath. The transition from gills to lungs. The transition from the weightlessness of the water to the heavy, crushing pull of gravity on land. As you feel the weight of your own body sinking into your bed, think of that ancient struggle against gravity. Your skeleton is a masterpiece of engineering designed to hold you upright against the pull of the earth, a pull that those first land dwellers had to master. But tonight, you can surrender to that pull. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. Gravity is not a burden tonight, it is the force that anchors you safely to your home. By the Devonian period, the age of fishes, the land was no longer empty. Massive forests of giant ferns and horsetails reached toward the sun. Insects, some the size of eagles, began to hum through the thick, oxygen-rich air. The great trek was complete. Life had conquered the heights. It had learned to walk, to crawl, and eventually, to fly. The universe was no longer confined to the deep. It was now exploring the mountains, the valleys, and the skies. This expansion is mirrored in your own life. Every day, you venture out into the world, facing the gravity of your responsibilities and the glare of the sun. You use the tools your ancestors developed over millions of years, your sight, your strength, your breath. But just as those first amphibians eventually had to return to the cool, moist safety of the water or the shade, you have now returned to your sanctuary. The Cambrian explosion of your day. The noise, the meetings, the visual stimuli, is over. You are retreating from the land of activity back into the ocean of sleep. Imagine yourself lying on a bed of soft, ancient moss at the edge of a quiet, primeval forest. The air is heavy with the scent of green growth and damp earth. The only sound is the distant murmur of the tide. The stars are beginning to appear in a sky that is now clear and welcoming. You are a child of this great trek. You carry the salt of the ocean in your blood and the strength of the land in your bones. You are the explorer who has come home. The eyes are closed. The lungs are steady. The gravity is holding you fast. The explosion has settled into a hum. The trek has ended in a rest. Sleep now, among the ghosts of the pioneers. The world is green, the air is full, and you have found your place upon the earth. Everything is breathing. Everything is still. And you are at peace. We have walked out of the primordial seas, feeling the first damp moss beneath our feet and the rush of oxygen in our new lungs. Now, we enter the most cinematic era of the Earth's history. Approximately 252 million years ago, the stage was set for the Mesozoic era, the age of reptiles. As you settle into the stillness of your room, imagine the ground beneath you beginning to tremble. Not from a storm or an earthquake, but from the weight of giants. The supercontinent of Pangaea is beginning to crack and drift apart, and in the lush, humid gaps between the land masses, life is growing to an impossible scale. The dinosaurs were the universe's experiment with grandeur. For nearly 180 million years, they dominated every corner of the planet. Sauropods with necks as long as buildings reached for the tops of giant conifers. Predators with teeth like serrated daggers patrolled the ferns. The air was thick with the leathery wings of pterosaurs, and the oceans were ruled by serpentine leviathans. This was a world of pure, raw power. A world where life reached its physical limits. As you feel the rhythm of your heart, think of the endurance of that era. It lasted nearly 50 times longer than the entire history of the human species. It was a stable, sun-drenched empire of biology. But even the mightiest empire of the cosmos can be humbled by a single, wandering rock. Approximately 66 million years ago, a mountain-sized asteroid, 10 kilometers wide, was hurtling through the dark toward the Gulf of Mexico. It struck with the force of 1 billion atomic bombs. The impact was not just a collision, it was a great reset. Within seconds, the Earth's crust behaved like a liquid. Massive tsunamis raced across the oceans. The atmosphere was filled with vaporized rock and soot, turning the sky black for years. The long winter had begun. The giants, unable to find enough food in the cold and dark, slowly vanished from the face of the earth. But this is not a story of death, it is a story of resilience. While the giants perished, something small and unassuming was hiding in the shadows. Our ancestors. The early mammals. They were tiny, furry creatures, often no larger than a mouse or a shrew. They survived because they were flexible. They could hide in burrows. They could eat almost anything. And most importantly, they were warm-blooded, carrying their own internal furnace against the biting cold of the impact winter. As you lie under your blankets, feel that same internal warmth. It is a legacy of that dark winter. Your ability to maintain your own temperature, to dream, and to nurture your young is the very reason you are here tonight. You are the descendant of the survivors who huddled together in the dark, waiting for the sun to return. When the dust finally settled and the skies cleared, the world was empty. The forests began to grow back, but the giants were gone. This vacancy was an invitation. The mammals emerged from their burrows and began to diversify at a staggering speed. They filled the forests, the plains, and eventually, the oceans. Without the extinction of the dinosaurs, the path to the human mind would have remained closed. This great reset is a profound lesson in the nature of time. Sometimes, a total collapse is the only way for a more complex, more conscious world to be born. In your own life, you may face moments that feel like a collision, a sudden change, a loss, or a period of dark winter. But remember the lesson of the small mammals. Within that darkness, your resilience is being forged. Your capacity for a new, more advanced chapter is being prepared. The Earth is a master of the reset. It knows how to heal its wounds. It knows how to turn a crater into a lush forest. It knows how to turn a catastrophe into an opportunity. As you move closer to sleep, let the drama of the dinosaurs fade away. The roaring has stopped. The dust has settled. The world is quiet now, filled with the soft sounds of mammals breathing in the night. Imagine a quiet, moonlit clearing in a forest 50 million years ago. The air is cool and fresh. The stars are bright in a sky that is no longer choked with soot. You are safe. The age of giants is a fossil in the rock, and the age of mind is just beginning to stir. You are a bridge between these eras. You have the raw, ancient strength of the reptiles in your brainstem, and the warm, social heart of the mammals in your chest. You are a harmonized being. Let your mind drift back into that burrow of safety. Your bed is your sanctuary. The world outside may be unpredictable, but here, in the stillness, you are protected. You have survived the day, just as your ancestors survived the eons. The asteroid is gone. The sun has returned, and the future is waiting. Sleep now, in the arms of a planet that never gives up. You are made of the stuff that survives. You are a miracle of endurance, and tonight, you have earned your rest. We have witnessed the absolute beginning, the silent white roar of the Big Bang. We have watched the first stars forge the elements of life in their fiery hearts. We have seen galaxies assemble like cosmic cities, our sun ignite as a golden anchor, and the earth transform from a ball of fire into a sanctuary of blue oceans and green forests. We have followed the thread of life from a single spark in the dark depths to the giants that shook the ground and the tiny survivors that huddled in the cold. Now, we reach the final destination of our journey. It is not a place in space, but a state of being. It is you. As you lie in the absolute stillness of your room, feel the immense weight of time resting behind you. You are the tip of a spear that has been flying through the dark for 13.8 billion years. Every atom in your left hand was likely forged in a different supernova than the atoms in your right hand. You are a walking collection of stardust, assembled with such breathtaking precision that you have become capable of wonder. This is the miracle of cosmic consciousness. The universe is no longer just a collection of rocks, gases, and radiation. Through you, the universe has developed a nervous system. Through your eyes, the stars are finally being seen. Through your mind, the laws of physics are finally being understood. As the scientist Carl Sagan beautifully suggested, we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Image comparing the neural network of a human brain to the large-scale structure of the cosmic web. Look closely at the architecture of your own mind. If you were to zoom in on the network of neurons in your brain and compare it to the cosmic web, the vast filaments of dark matter and galaxies that span the universe. The patterns are nearly identical. The universe repeats its designs. The same branching patterns found in the veins of a leaf, the delta of a river, and the vessels of your heart are mirrored in the largest structures of space. You are not in the universe, you are the universe experiencing itself as a human being for a brief, beautiful moment. In this final realization, let all the boundaries of your ego dissolve. The you that worries about tomorrow, the you that regrets yesterday, the you that feels separate from the world, let that you go. Behind those thoughts is a deeper, more ancient presence. It is the same presence that was there at the beginning of time. It is the stillness of the void, the heat of the stars, and the patience of the mountains. As your breathing slows to its deepest, most natural rhythm, recognize that you are home. You do not need to seek a destination. You do not need to achieve a state of grace. You are already made of the highest materials the cosmos can produce. Your very existence is the answer to a question the universe has been asking since the first second of the Big Bang. The journey of the atom is complete. It started as a simple hydrogen nucleus in the cooling aftermath of creation. It drifted through the void, was crushed into the heart of a star, was blasted into a nebula, was gathered into a planet, was dissolved into an ocean, was woven into a strand of DNA, and now, it is part of a brain that is contemplating the stars. What a magnificent, long road you have traveled to be here tonight. The cosmic consciousness does not need to be active all the time. Even the universe has its cycles of rest. Stars run out of fuel and go dark. Galaxies drift into quiet periods of dormancy. And you, too, must now return to the source. As you move into the final stages of wakefulness, imagine yourself floating in the center of the galaxy. Not as a small, fragile human, but as a vast, ethereal consciousness. You are as large as the space between the stars. You are as old as the light that is just now reaching Earth from distant clusters. There is no fear here. There is no noise. There is only the hum of the vacuum, the soft vibration of the cosmic background radiation, the poem of the universe. Your body is the earth. Your breath is the atmosphere. Your mind is the void. The story has come full circle. From the one, to the many, and now back to the one. You can let go of the narrative now. You can let go of the story of the universe. The words have served their purpose. They have walked you to the edge of the great ocean of sleep. Now, you can step into the water. It is warm. It is familiar. It is the same water you came from billions of years ago. The stars will continue to burn while you sleep. The galaxies will continue their slow, majestic rotation. The earth will turn, bringing the sun back to your doorstep. You don't have to manage any of it. You can just be. You are a miracle. You are a survivor. You are the universe's most precious creation. The stardust is tired. The consciousness is dimming. The circle is closing. Sleep now, in the heart of the cosmos. Sleep in the arms of the atoms that once were stars. Sleep in the silence that preceded the light. Everything is one. Everything is whole, and you are home. Good night, universe.